team at just 17 years old, Rooney quickly became one of the most important players for his country. His impact was immediate, as he became the youngest player ever to score in a European Championship, and he quickly established himself as England's main attacking threat. Rooney's international career was not without its challenges. He faced criticism after a series of disappointing tournaments, but his resilience and determination kept him pushing forward. His ability to carry the weight of a nation on his shoulders, even in the most difficult times, was a testament to his character and his unyielding commitment to the game. The evolution of Wayne Rooney over the years. Wayne Rooney's role in football evolved. He began his career as a raw, explosive forward, capable of scoring from almost any position on the field. But as his career progressed, he became more of a playmaker, dropping deeper into midfield to dictate the tempo of the game. His vision, passing, and ability to read the game made him just as effective in this deeper role as he had been in his natural position as a striker. Rooney's evolution as a player was one of his most remarkable traits. He was never content with just being a goal scorer. Instead, he worked tirelessly to improve every aspect of his game. Whether it was his passing, his leadership, or his work rate, Rooney constantly pushed himself to be better. It was this relentless drive that kept him at the top of his game for so many years. Leadership and legacy. One of the most significant moments in Rooney's career came in 2014, when he was named captain of the England national team. As captain, he was tasked with leading a young and promising squad, and he took on the responsibility with the same passion and dedication that he had shown throughout his career. Rooney's leadership on and off the field was undeniable, and his ability to inspire his teammates was one of his greatest qualities. Throughout his career, Rooney was never just a player, he was a symbol of English football. His determination, work ethic, and leadership made him an icon, and he became a role model for the next generation of players. By the time he retired from international football in 2018, Rooney had achieved everything there was to achieve in the game. He had broken records, won trophies, and represented his country with pride. But perhaps the most impressive aspect of his legacy is the impact he had on the game. He showed that hard work, dedication, and a love for the sport could take you to the very top. The transition to coaching and beyond. After retiring from playing in 2018, Wayne Rooney's journey did not stop there. He moved into management, taking on the role of manager at Derby County in 2020. His transition from player to manager has been closely watched, and while the challenges are different, Rooney has approached management with the same determination and passion that defined his playing career. As a manager, Rooney has shown promise. His experience as a player has given him a unique understanding of the game, and he has used that knowledge to help shape his team and develop the next generation of players. While his managerial career is still in its early stages, one thing is clear: Wayne Rooney is committed to continuing his journey in football, this time from the touchline. Wayne Rooney. A legacy for the ages. Wayne Rooney's journey from a young prodigy in Liverpool to one of the greatest footballers of his generation is a testament to the power of passion, hard work, and resilience. His impact on the game will be remembered for generations to come, not only for his incredible skill and numerous records but for the heart and soul he poured into every match. Rooney's legacy is one of greatness, and his story serves as an inspiration to every young player who dreams of making it to the top. From his early days at Everton to his legendary status at Manchester United and his leadership on the international stage, Wayne Rooney's journey is one of triumph, determination, and relentless ambition. He may have hung up his boots, but his influence on the game will continue to be felt for many years to come. Wayne Rooney's story is not just one of footballing success. It is a story of overcoming challenges, rising to the occasion, and leaving a lasting legacy that will inspire future generations. From prodigy to legend, his journey is one for the ages. 4-0 Mini.
Bacha Bazi, meaning boy play, in Persian, is a deeply troubling and exploitative practice that has persisted in parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Central Asia for centuries. It involves the sexual exploitation and enslavement of young boys, often forced to dress as women and perform dances for older men, who may later abuse them. Despite efforts to eradicate it, Bacha Bazi remains a significant human rights issue, highlighting the complexities of cultural traditions, warlord power, corruption, and weak legal systems. Historical background: the roots of Bacha Bazi date back centuries, to a time when young boys were used for entertainment in the courts of Persian and Central Asian aristocrats. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, the practice was common among warlords, tribal leaders, and wealthy elites. It was seen as a symbol of status and power, where men could showcase their wealth by keeping a young boy as an entertainer and personal servant. Bacha Bazi was largely suppressed during the Taliban's first rule, 1996 to 2001, as the regime imposed strict moral laws prohibiting such practices. However, after the Taliban's fall in 2001, the resurgence of warlords and local power structures led to the re-emergence of this tradition, particularly in regions where law enforcement was weak or complicit. How Bacha Bazi operates: Bacha Bazi typically involves young boys, often from impoverished backgrounds, being taken or lured into servitude by wealthy or influential men. These boys, usually between the ages of 10 and 18, are dressed in female attire and trained to dance at private gatherings. After performing, they are often subjected to sexual exploitation and abuse by their owners. Methods of recruitment can occur in several ways. 1. Abduction: some boys are kidnapped and forced into Bacha Bazi. 2. Poverty: families in financial distress may be coerced into selling their sons under the guise of employment or protection. 3. Orphans and street children: vulnerable children without guardians are often targeted. 4. Promises of a better future: some boys are deceived with offers of education, shelter, or employment, only to find themselves trapped in servitude. Legal and governmental response: despite the fact that Bacha Bazi is officially illegal in Afghanistan, the enforcement of laws against it has been inconsistent at best. The Afghan Penal Code criminalizes the practice, but corruption, fear, and lack of political will prevent serious action against perpetrators. Even more troubling, reports have emerged of Afghan police and military officials engaging in or turning a blind eye to Bacha Bazi. Some victims have even been punished for escaping their abusers rather than receiving protection and justice. Attempts at reform: in recent years, Afghan lawmakers have attempted to introduce stricter laws and enforcement policies to combat Bacha Bazi. In 2017, the Afghan government introduced legislation explicitly criminalizing the practice, with penalties including long-term imprisonment. However, enforcement remains weak due to corruption and ongoing conflict. International organizations continue to pressure Afghan authorities to prioritize these laws and ensure justice for victims. The role of the international community: international human rights organizations, including the United Nations, have condemned Bacha Bazi and pressured Afghan authorities to take stricter action. Reports by Human Rights Watch and other advocacy groups have highlighted the widespread nature of the practice and the challenges in eliminating it. However, given the fragile state of governance in Afghanistan, progress has been slow and often met with resistance. NATO and US forces operating in Afghanistan have also been criticized for their response to Bacha Bazi. Reports indicate that military personnel were instructed to ignore cases of abuse committed by Afghan allies, citing cultural sensitivity. This policy has sparked outrage, particularly among human rights activists and soldiers who witnessed the abuse firsthand. Impact on victims: the effects of Bacha Bazi on victims are devastating and long-lasting. Many boys suffer from severe psychological trauma, physical abuse, and lifelong stigmatization. As they age out of the practice, many find themselves abandoned with no means of support, often turning to crime or drug addiction to survive. Psychological and social consequences. 1. Severe PTSD. Many victims develop post-traumatic stress disorder due to prolonged abuse. 2. Suicidal tendencies. The trauma and social stigma often lead victims to self-harm or suicide. 3. Social isolation. Many survivors are rejected by their communities and families. 4. Continued exploitation. Some victims become trapped in a cycle of exploitation, turning to sex work or criminal activities to survive. Victims also face significant barriers to reintegration into society. Cultural stigma prevents many from speaking out, and those who attempt to escape their abusers often find themselves with nowhere to turn. In extreme cases, former Bacha Bazi victims have been killed for dishonoring their former masters. Challenges in ending Bacha Bazi. Several factors make the eradication of Bacha Bazi particularly challenging. 1. Cultural acceptance. In some communities, Bacha Bazi is viewed as a long-standing tradition rather than a crime. 2. Corruption. Law enforcement officials often accept bribes or are themselves involved in the practice. 3. Weak legal systems. Afghanistan's judicial system struggles with enforcing laws due to instability and competing power structures. 4. Fear of retaliation. Witnesses and survivors rarely come forward due to fear of violent retribution. Efforts to combat Bacha Bazi. Various efforts have been made to combat the practice, including 1. International sanctions. Sanctions against officials known to engage in or enable Bacha Bazi. 2. Rescue and rehabilitation programs. NGOs and human rights organizations are working to rescue boys from Bacha Bazi and provide psychological and vocational support. 3. Educational campaigns. Raising awareness to challenge cultural acceptance of Bacha Bazi. 4. Strengthening laws. Afghan lawmakers continue to push for harsher penalties and better enforcement. The future. Can Bacha Bazi be stopped? Ending Bacha Bazi will require a multifaceted approach, including 1. Stronger law enforcement. Corrupt officials must be held accountable, and laws must be enforced consistently. 2. Education and awareness. Communities must be educated on the harm caused by Bacha Bazi and encouraged to reject it. 3. Support for victims, safe shelters, counseling, and reintegration programs must be established for survivors. 4. International pressure. The global community must continue pushing Afghan authorities to take real action against the practice. 5. Cultural change, encouraging local leaders and religious figures to speak out against Bacha Bazi. Conclusion. Bacha Bazi is a glaring human rights violation that persists despite international condemnation. While progress has been slow, continued advocacy, legal reforms, and cultural shifts are necessary to combat this deeply entrenched problem. Addressing the root causes, poverty, corruption, and lack of education, will be key to ensuring that no child is subjected to such exploitation in the future. Through international cooperation, stronger enforcement, and societal awareness, there is hope that Bacha Bazi can be eradicated and its victims can find justice and rehabilitation.
Introduction. The Albanian sworn virgins, or Bernashat, represent a centuries-old cultural phenomenon in the Balkans. Rooted in the Kanun, a medieval code of laws, this unique tradition allows women to take a vow of celibacy and live as men. By doing so, they gain rights and privileges traditionally reserved for males in a deeply patriarchal society. This article explores the origins, societal role, challenges, and modern-day implications of this practice, offering a comprehensive insight into its historical and contemporary significance. Historical background. The tradition of the sworn virgins is deeply embedded in Albanian history, particularly in the mountainous northern regions where the Kanun of Leke Dukagjini dictated social order for centuries. The Kanun established rigid gender roles, assigning men authority and responsibility while confining women to subordinate positions. However, it also provided a loophole. A woman could assume male status by swearing lifelong celibacy, adopting male attire, and assuming a male name. The origins of this practice are believed to date back to medieval times, though its exact inception remains uncertain. Some scholars suggest it may have been influenced by ancient Illyrian traditions or other patriarchal structures that needed alternatives for female empowerment within male-dominated societies. The Kanun and gender roles. The Kanun emphasized family honor above all else. In a society where inheritance and family leadership passed through male lineage, the absence of a male heir could create severe economic and social vulnerabilities. In such cases, a woman could step into the role of a son through the sworn virgin tradition, thus ensuring property retention and family stability. Other reasons for becoming a sworn virgin included avoiding an arranged or unwanted marriage, avenging family blood feuds, as women traditionally could not engage in blood vengeance but men could, securing male rights such as property ownership and political participation, providing for their families when no male relative was available, becoming a sworn virgin. The transition to a sworn virgin was marked by a public declaration, usually witnessed by the village elders. Once the oath was taken, the woman cut her hair short, donned male clothing, adopted a male name, and often carried weapons, particularly in regions where blood feuds were common. This transformation was irreversible. Breaking the vow of celibacy was considered dishonorable and could result in severe social repercussions. While sworn virgins were respected and granted freedom beyond those of other women, they were also bound by strict expectations and responsibilities. The role of sworn virgins in society. Sworn virgins occupied a unique space within Albanian society. They were seen as men in all respects except biologically. This allowed them to own property, engage in business transactions, act as heads of households, carry weapons, and participate in local councils. Despite enjoying these male privileges, sworn virgins also carried a burden. Their identity was not necessarily based on personal gender identity, but on societal necessity. Unlike modern concepts of gender fluidity, their masculinity was a social construct rather than a personal choice of identity. Challenges and limitations. Despite their elevated status compared to other women, sworn virgins faced significant restrictions. They were expected to remain celibate for life, which meant sacrificing personal relationships and family life. In addition, they had to conform strictly to male behaviors, suppressing